welcome to the Clifton Whirly Show. This week we have Nick and Josh, the Whirly Birds, and we want to welcome you to this week of our episode. It's been an interesting week. I know here, I've been getting like some of those Michigan temperatures here in the deep south, and it has been brutally cold. And so,
Oh,
yeah, I'm miserable. I could,
it's so cold. Well, at least we're prepared for it. You guys aren't.
we're
Yeah,
not,
and you know
and
what? It's been warm this week here.
has it?
Kind of warm. Yeah, like 30s. It's like
Oh
it's
man.
I don't
balmy.
know, man. That wind chill though, it's been blustery. Like
Yeah,
face hurt cold.
that's
I-
true.
But we've had sun. We've had
Yeah.
sun and very little snow. I mean, driving hasn't been great in the morning, but very little snow. But I just get a kick out of you Southern guys talking about cold weather because you're totally like, I don't know, like you just got hit with the plague or something.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is part of my what's new, but
Uh-huh.
like, so Tuesday night, there was like this front that moved in, and it wasn't supposed to bring like hardly any snow. Like they had like 10 to 15%, and all of a sudden, like it was like, yeah, it snowed for like 4 hours,
Wow.
and it dropped temps down. It was already like sitting at 32, and then it dropped it down to the low 20s, and then when it stopped snowing it was like down in the teens overnight, and I woke up and it was I want to say like 13 degrees with a wind chill of -1.
Man.
And
Yeah, that is bad.
oh man, I've never felt it that cold before. It was insanity. And
You can't even take the kids outside to have fun when it's that cold.
no,
either. It's
I
like,
know, like they would go out and play for like 10 or 15 minutes and then like come back in and then warm up, and then they did that like 3 times Wednesday. And so
Have they seen snow before?
yeah, that's what's weird is like it was early in December. There we had a snow event where it snowed all day, but it was not like this one where like the bitter cold set in afterwards. And I mean, everything shut down here. They had the interstates telling people not to get on them. It was just all the schools were out. The schools were actually out still today because it was still freezing this morning.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's just been a crazy week, like totally unexpected, and so it was kind of nice to have that break from everything. But then I started getting cabin fever, and so back to work today.
Well, now you get to talk to your Michigan friends
I
who
know.
can sympathize with you about the cold, and we can talk about better things.
Yeah, I just feel like there's not a lot of sympathy there for that, probably.
Because we sink up to our knees when we go outside. Well, actually, not right now. But,
Yeah.
Um,
I bet
But
y'all will
at
get
least-
hit with it soon.
oh, I would imagine we will. Now, do people lose their minds there when it snows and can't drive like people do here the first time?
Well, yeah. I know that they did a pretty good job of like getting the warnings out, like be careful. But like last time when it snowed like a month ago, people were like running off the roads like left and right. I know
Yeah.
I actually had to go. We had a trip planned that day, and I had to drive through about 2 hours of that. And I probably counted like a dozen wrecks on my way.
See, I feel like the Michigan thing to do is you just crank up "Immigrant Song" by Led Zeppelin and just gun the car down the highway.
What? Okay.
Anyway, well, that's how anybody who drives an F-150 that has four-wheel drive drives like that anyway.
Yeah.
Even
yeah.
though it's no good.
Because they don't care at all about anyone. But oh well. Well, maybe we should talk about actual gear now.
Yeah. What's new with you guys?
You want to go first, Josh?
Sure. Well, actually, the thing is that I haven't gotten any of the new stuff yet. I'm still waiting for it. But I'll tell you, I'll start with last week for the Mojo Minute. I talked about my Silvertone here, and I went ahead and I ordered a quarter-inch jack and a pick guard mount chrome jazz pickup for it. It hasn't came yet. It's going to come tomorrow. And then I was paid for a couple drawings that I was doing, and I had about a little bit over $100 sitting in my my account on PayPal. I'm thinking, well, that's when you have money in your bank in your PayPal account, that's when you start to think, huh, my board doesn't sound quite as good as I like. And so I started looking online on Reverb, and I was looking for a overdrive and a distortion that kind of worked together, and something I didn't have to pay too much for, and something that maybe could run at 18 volts. And so I was looking at the Full Tone Full Drive, and I was looking at a few different pedals, and the GT500 came up, and I'm like, huh, that's kind of cool. And I listened to it, and the drive side kind of sounded like a more tame Rat pedal, and then the overdrive side kind of sounds like just a transparent overdrive. And so I went ahead and I bought that. I ended up getting it for what, like $60 for that, and that's coming Monday. And then I'm looking forward to that.
Who makes that?
Full Tone.
Full Tone. Okay.
Yeah. So and I really like the Ultimate Drive, and it sounded like from Joyo that's basically an OCD clone. But yeah. I didn't like the play on the gain, because you had to keep that gain almost to nothing if you wanted to use it as an overdrive. And listening to the gain sweep in the overdrive there, it's transparent, but it has a similar kind of feel to the OCD one that's on the low setting. And it's got so much range in the knobs that I should be able to get something I like out of it. And for $60 for an American-made pedal that you can run at 18 volts, that sounds good to me. Plus, that'll give me a lot more headroom too, and I'll have even more range, because I don't like having a pedal where I can't dial out all the gain if I want to, and dial it in a little bit. And then I was looking at the EHX Freeze pedal, but then it's so limited, man. It only does one thing. It'll take up a spot on my board, and I mean, I would probably play with it for a little bit, then be like, man, I wish I got a delay. So instead, I got a Digitech Digidelay that has a sample and hold function on it, and I should be able to get 80% of the way there. Kind of excited to have 2 delays going so that I can do some of the crazier tone settings on my Alter Ego. Yeah. And have one before and after. So yeah, I'm actually, it's weird because I usually don't buy a lot of stuff, but I'm looking forward to those things. And it's funny because that GT500, even though I listen to it and I don't hear a ton of difference between that and the Full Tone Full Drive, except for that maybe that's more aggressive and can get more aggressive, but people just get rid of it for some reason.
Yeah. Do you know of, was that his first drive? The Full Drive? Wasn't that his first big pedal?
I don't know. I just know that there's a lot of them out there for really inexpensive compared to a lot of his other ones. But I listened to the recordings of them, which we'll talk about later maybe. And it's like, I mean, this thing does 90% of what the other thing does, and 90% of the pedals that he has going for $90 or $100 used,
Yeah.
And
well, go ahead.
No, I'm just confused by that. What do you think, Nick?
Well, I was kind of weird about that too, because when I was looking for a boost, and my dad was looking for a boost before he bought a Spark, and I just ended up modding a Screaming Bird for my boost. But I was looking at the Fat Boost, like the full range boost, and I was like, why is this one so much cheaper than everything else? And it's like Full Tone, which is on a reputable brand. Like, why is this so cheap? And I can't figure out why used Full Tone pedals, like, they are really cheap. And I don't know if it's just because of the packaging, like the paint. I mean, nothing has changed on the Full Tone line forever. And then he made that one quote about how he hasn't paid attention to any builders in the last 15 years or something like that. And everybody was kind of like, this guy's a jerk. And I've heard he's a jerk, but that's really neither here nor there. But I mean, his pedals are just pretty bland with just the Full Tone signature on them. And maybe they're just not sexy. And that's why people don't really stick with them.
That's kind of interesting. It reminds me of Clifton talks about his Jekyll and Hyde. You've been talking about that a lot. And those visual sound pedals, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's like, It's like they're not particularly attractive pedals, and I think that hurts them. Even though they're great, they're
Yeah.
great as far as every review I've heard, every person I've heard to talk about them. It's like if they could get rid of half their board but keep that pedal, you know. That's the weird thing is how much of this is based on looks. You know?
I don't know. But
I'm beginning to
guessing-
believe there's
I'm
a
guessing-
lot.
Yes. And amount of knobs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and split switches.
for
Obviously.
sure. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I know what you mean. Like, who makes the Route 66 pedal?
That's
the
visual
compressor.
sound.
Yeah, and that looks terrible. It's like a home plate, and then it's beige,
Yeah.
like, or dirty white, or whatever you want to call it, parchment. And it's like, well, if I used it, I'd probably like hide it.
Yeah.
I don't like stick it in my amp with Velcro so you couldn't see it, but it was running through my loop or something. I don't know, but or that's like that'd be a fun thing to talk about. Maybe that's a good topic for like the Tone Mob or something, like pedals but that belong in a pedal drawer, never to be seen again, but are crucial for sound.
Yeah. The studio ones.
Yeah,
It's my
studio
collection of studio
pedals.
pedals.
The
Yeah.
brown bag pedal episode.
So what about you, Nick? What's new with you?
Well, I wasn't gonna buy anything, and then of course you guys keep feeding me. I have got 3 different. You guys plus 2 other people in my life keep feeding me parlors, and for like under $50, and it's nuts. I couldn't find, like, you guys remember when I was looking for my Stella. I mean, it was a solid couple months process where I was like willing to pay $125 because I couldn't find anything. And then I'm getting $50, like $50, from the Goodwill page, and then I'm getting Instagram people are messaging me. One of Jess's friends who likes to go bargain shopping keeps finding these things in pawn shops. And then now I've got I'm finding them all over Facebook. Like, they're all over Facebook Marketplace. I keep getting they're showing up all over the place in the Rockford area for under $60, and I'm like, I want that. But now I kind of just decided, I like my Stella. I don't really have room for another guitar right now, and I'm kind of like, if I find one that I can't pass up, okay. But I have this. I can't stand having things that I can't use. And then since we're on the pedal topic, I've had this Ibanez 7 Series, the Coral Flange, the CF7, and I got it back when I had my PH7, and I think the PH7 is actually the better pedal, but the CF7 has a lot more. It's got like it's got a wider range of stuff. Like, it can really do the chorus thing well. It can really do the flange thing well, and it really gets crazy on the Wicked setting.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got this pedal I like, but when the guy sold it to me, he didn't tell me that the switch only worked part of the time. Like, you have to step on the corner of the pedal to get it to work.
Mm.
And I guess this is kind of a common thing with that pedal when the switch starts going. And it's not like an easy switch to fix, like a Boss switch or something like that. It's like I cracked the pedal open, and there's like 3 circuit boards in there, and you have to get wade past all of that. And the switch is kind of a weird switch. And so I was like, all right, what do I got to do to fix this thing? And Loophole Pedals on Facebook, I saw they posted like this crazy rehousing of one of these pedals that they built that looks awesome. So I inquired about that, and they were like $250 for the whole thing, and that's modded and everything. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that. I know this is awesome. I'd really have to love that. Like, I could see Justin doing that, Porter, because he really loves the pedals and wanted to rehouse the one that looked awesome and was like way more functionable. And I'm like, yeah, you're doing a lot to it, but I like the pedal, and really all I want is the switch fix. So he said, for a $40 bench fee, I'll put in a Switchcraft for you, and just a normal stomp switch, and you can bypass that other switch because I can't guarantee if I fix it, it's not going to break again. So I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. So it was sitting around, and I was like, okay, finally, yeah, I gotta send this thing out and get it fixed. There's no point in sitting on a pedal that I can't use, and I actually do like effects. I do like a modulation effect. I usually keep one modulation effect on my board, just because I like that chorus sound. And it's not the '80s cheesy chorus sound that I like. I like the Johnny Winter chorus sound, the Roy Rogers and the Delta Rhythm Kings chorus sound, and I like the Leslie sound. Unfortunately, this one doesn't really do the Leslie sound that well. It does it a little bit crazier. But you know, it does everything else well enough that I want the pedal to I want the pedal on my board. So that's what I ended up doing, and I sent it out today, and I should probably get it back in like a week or so, and hopefully it's what I want it to be. And the only other thing about that pedal that's kind of weird is I think I'm going to have to get some buttons at some point. Some what are those pedal topper buttons?
Barefoot buttons.
Barefoot buttons. Yeah, because this one was already like, it was like gray brick on my board. It's already way taller than everything I have, so I kind of need to like put toppers on the rest of my buttons to make it all kind of like even height, or I'm going to be like way above, like an inch above everything else, and that's kind of bugging me. But other than that, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Yeah, that's me. That's what I got going.
you know, that makes me think of, you talking about the visual sound you referenced a minute ago. I still have the visual sound Jekyll and Hyde. It's like the version 1, like the gray one. And it's kind of weird. It was one of those things that it showed up at a yard sale that I work at, for the college student union that I work with. And they it showed up there, and so I asked the guy running it. I was like, hey, or my friend was like, hey, how much did you sell this for? And so anyways, we worked on a price, and it was a good deal. And so I got it, and when I went to run it, it was doing all these kind of weird and wonky things. And so I sent it off to, this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I sent it off to Visual Sound in Nashville. I mailed it to them. I contacted them. They told me to mail it in, this, that, and the other. And they replaced the switches in it, is what it boiled down to. It said the switches were bad, and that's why it was doing all these weird things. By the time what I did with what I paid for it, and then what I, had it repaired for, I was sitting at about $90 on this thing. And I love that pedal. I mean, it does its job. It's got a good sounding Tube Screamer type overdrive, and then it's got a pretty good distortion on it. However, I'm upside down in the thing, so there's no reason to get rid of it and replace it with something else, in my opinion. Unless something came along that I was like, no, I want this, or I need it. Now, this thing is huge, and it's got that that diamond shape down at the bottom. That's kind of weird. And I think I was listening to the Gear Slum this morning, and they were talking about visual sound and brought up that pedal as well, talking about how funky shaped they are.
Yeah.
And Cole made a very good point. He was like, I'm willing to bet it's not because they have a diamond shaped circuit board in there. Like, there's no reason why that this pedal should be shaped that way. The circuit board's obviously not shaped that way. Why did they do it? I guess because they thought it was cool. But now everybody wants smaller and more, how many pedals can I fit on my pedal board? But as far as it doing its job and doing it well, I mean, it does a great job. It's ugly. Mine's all scratched up, and the lettering on it is kind of hard to read, but it does a good job. I know I've tested other distortions out, and I can't be happy. I've tried Dark Matter and a DS1, and none of those sound as good as the distortion on that one to me. So, I have a ginormous pedal board, and so I'm not as worried about space at this point. So it stays on. I mean, it does its job. It plays an important role in my sound. So,
I'm looking online right now for the used ones, and it looks like the cheapest one's like $129, man. And that's just, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like you're too far
Yeah.
underwater anymore with it.
Yeah,
Plus it's-
I know I've listed it locally, like on Craigslist and stuff and Facebook, and like I've had dudes be like, "Man, I'll give you $50."
Yeah, because
It's
the what is it? The Route 66 goes for $50 and $60 all the time, and I think they
Mhm.
look so similar.
Yeah.
People think it's the same thing.
It could be. But like unless somebody came along and was like, "Here's $150," you know, which is probably not going
You
to
know-
happen.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of you do it, then you kick yourself, right? Because maybe there's something special about that particular one. Have you played any others of the same pedal?
No, I mean it's just a fluke thing, and it's kind of like a lot of how my gear is. Like I just come across it, and it's like, oh, that's a good deal. I'm gonna jump on that, and ends
Yeah.
up being part of my sound.
It's funny how that works.
Mm-hmm.
You always run across something. I'm the same way with my Screaming Bird. Like I have got this terrible electroharmonic Screaming Bird boost, and actually it's not terrible because it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's a treble boost. I mean, it's an old pedal. And I bought it for $25 at Guitar Center because I thought, you guys know how much of a treble addict I am, and I'm like, this is what I want. Well, it was not. I got it home, and as soon as I hit it, it sucked the low end out of everything. I mean, just strangled everything. And I'm like, all right, now I'm stuck with this piece of crap pedal. I should just take it back. And I read a quick article that said replace the a couple of the transistors in there, or maybe it was the capacitors. I can't remember, or resistors, and change the values of it, and you'll get a full range boost. And I did it. And I can't honestly, it sounds awesome. And it still boosts the treble a little bit because I didn't change all the components, just two. And so it does, I have a full boost clone, and it does sound different than my full boost clone. It does boost the higher end a little bit. And it's like this perfect combination. And my dad laughs at me because he's like, why are you still using that Screaming Bird? And I was like, I can't take it off my board. Like I use it all the time.
Yeah.
I even bought an EP boost, and I use that over the EP boost. So I don't know. It's just something I dig, I guess. It's funny how that happens though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird how things, kind of push you in directions. I know guitars have been that way. Like, oh, well, this is a good deal right now, and it ends up being like a huge part of my sound because I bond
Yeah.
with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like your Taylor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna flip that thing like nobody's business because I got such a good deal on it, and then I played it,
For
and I was
sure.
like, no, this is me.
This
So-
is the Clifton guitar.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the stuff that you kept your Jekyll and Hyde was something that you felt like you couldn't sell and get anything out of, because I know for me, I've spent a lot of time, and this kind of moves us into our next thing, getting rid of stuff that I had no business getting rid of, and I should have never gotten rid of.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think of what would be the thing I regret most getting rid of, because things would mildly break and I kind of get rid of them, or I kind of just lose track of them and they'd get stolen by different people.
Mhm.
And I have to say, for me, it was my Hilgen accordion amp. There was the one thing I really really regret allowing to slip through my fingers, because my sister's boyfriend was staying at my place for a while as a roommate,
Mhm.
and her boyfriend at the time, she's no longer with him, thank goodness. He's an absolute loser. But I had this thing. I'd blown the tubes in it, and I think I'd melted a couple caps, and it
Yeah.
had these weird military tubes at the time. And it sounded great when it was going. And it was a Hilgen accordion amplifier, and it had a tremolo circuit, 12-inch speaker, that weird splatter die basket weave on the front of it. And my dad had bought it at a auction for really, really cheap, and I played that thing for like a year, and I let it slip through my fingers, and the guy stole it and sold it to the guy in town who knew that I had it. And so the guy calls me up and said, hey, you're this guy just sold me your amp, and I know it's your amp because you're the only person who's ever came into the store talking about it, and what should I do? And I said, you know what, don't get the kid in trouble. Just, you bought it from him fair and square, you can have it, because he was going to sell it back to me for what the kid traded it for, like $50 or something.
Mhm.
And so, lo and behold, he takes it over to his amp tech. He switches out a couple caps and switches out the tube. What do you call those things? The retainers for the tubes, the clips, the jacks there for the tubes. He switches them out for like EL84s, and boom, this amp is working again, and it sounds awesome. And he sells it for $400.
Oh man.
And it's like, man. And the thing is, I really like that amp. It was really unique. I should have bought it just for the fact that I'd have a really cool 1x12, even if I didn't get it fixed, a really cool 1x12 cabinet. And yeah, I let that slip through my fingers, and I shouldn't have. I mean, there's other things too, my rat pedal and my whammy, but that thing was just really unique and cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you guys? What have you let slip through your fingers that you had, that you wish you hadn't?
You want to go ahead, Nick?
Yeah, sure. I'm only going to give you guys one. I know I went a long time on this last week, but I have a lot of regrets. So the one thing I had no business getting rid of was my Sovtek Midget MiG 50 head.
Oh yeah.
I knew it was going to be that.
There was no reason for me to get rid of that head. That head, if I had, and the moment I did it, I felt bad about it. That head was not only my first tube amp, but I didn't know what I had then. And after I sold it, I knew a little bit. I started to learn more about it. A lot of punk guys were playing it, and they said it was a really good amp to get like raw AC/DC type tones. And it playing what I play now, I think that amp would have been great for me. It was really portable. I mean, it was the size of a lunchbox. It was heavy, but it was still really, really small. Probably bigger, more like a toolbox. But it was still really small compared to most heads today. It kind of had that two-rock look going for it. And I mean, I didn't even have this thing long enough to change tubes in it. Like, I only had it a couple years, and I didn't drive it hard enough to, to really fry anything out of it. But this amp was like a coveted amp. I got this amp in Sight and Sound in Petoskey, and I think I paid $250 for it.
Yeah, that's what they were. It's
for
like,
the head. And then when I sold it, they were going for $500. And I think I sold it for $300, and then I charged the guy $50 to ship it, and it ended up costing me more than that, and it got damaged in freight.
Oh.
And the guy had to pay. He didn't make me I mean, it was insured, but he had to work. I think he had to get it fixed, and never did get his money for the damage. And I mean, he showed me the damage, and it was like it was packaged really well, and they just bashed it. Like the whole panel was dented in and broke like 3 of the pots off, and like I don't know how this happened. But it was sad for me because I was like, oh, this guy's gonna take care of it. I talked to him a little bit, like this was my first amp. I got a little sentimental about it, and then like it was ruined. And I was like, I'll never ship an amp again. And I just missed this head every day. Like now, if I wanted to buy one, I would pay. It would end up being like $400 or $500. And I saw that Electro Harmonics is starting to reissue them too, and they probably sound great, but not as good as that original. And that one's kind of just a jewel of an amp that was made during that time, that Russian technology time. And I wish I still had it. That's the one I regret the most. I think I'd be running that with a boost right now, and I'd have plenty of high end. Top end, and through a 212 cab. I had, like I think I said before, I had 2 Sonic 212 cabs that were Celestion loaded, and it was just way too good of a rig for how good of a player I was when I started out. It was way too good. It was one of those things that was like, I didn't know what I had, and I wish somebody would have just made me play a solid state amp for like 6 years until I got into my tube amp and was like blown away by it,
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's mine. I still feel sad talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Well, I don't know. I'm here thinking of a couple of items, but what comes to mind right now is I had a Bassman 10 that I had traded this twin reverb reissue that had been like heavily modded. And I needed to get out of that amp, and I traded it for this Bassman 10. And the Bassman 10, there was nothing wrong with it. It was 50 watts, which it was, you know, not too terribly loud, but it does get loud. The only thing is, like, it was insanely heavy and big. It was
Yeah.
on casters, but, you know, it took up a lot of space. And I ended up, we were fixing to have our third child. And I don't know if you guys have been through this, but, like, you get through this panic, like, oh, I'm going to need all this extra cash and what have you and whatever. And I got in this panic, like, I need to sell off stuff and so I had convinced myself that I should sell this and go ahead and get some pedals I needed and then, like, keep the rest of the cash, you know? And so I sold it for ridiculously cheap to another guy and shipped it off to him and everything. And man, like, he got it. It was like, oh man, this is amazing. It's like got the plexi tone and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, and so I found myself like chasing that tone later, you know. And I guess it wasn't that I probably didn't need to upgrade and get a better Fender amp. It was just that, you know, I let panic ensue and, like, I could have been fine without getting rid of that, you know. And so that's the thing is, like, if something is like something you're bonding with, I'm a little bit more reluctant to get rid of it now because I found myself like going and getting the same thing again, you know, after the fact.
And then you always pay a little bit more for it.
Yeah,
And it's
you
not
do.
quite exactly what you want.
Yeah, you always
Yeah.
do. And so I'm more of a when it comes to my pedals, like, I really don't do a lot of changing my pedal board around. I kind of find what I like and kind of stick with it. And, you know, I probably could find some ways to push myself in some new directions with some new pedals. But you know, we had talked earlier about kind of doing a rundown of our pedals. And so I just kind of wanted to give you like this is how I approach it. You know, I have a full tone OCD I start at the beginning of my chain. And again, that's one that I just kind of, somebody gave me, and I just liked it. It's almost always on unless, like, I'm able to crank my amp up some. Like, but if I'm having to play, you know, kind of low, it's kind of my always on, like, kind of push your amp into a slight breakup kind of pedal. And then I use the Jekyll and Hyde to give me my overdrive and distortion. And then I go from there into I've got a TC Electronic Flashback X4 that is, again, it's like one of those pedal board hogs. It's way too big.
It does everything.
But it does everything, and I end up kind of staying on one setting, and that's the modulated reverb. Not reverb, delay. Yeah, it's kind of got like a slight little chorusy sound to it, and so I kind of use that for, like, I don't have a chorus pedal, and I found that sound on the TC kind of gives me what I want.
Those modulated delays are so much nicer than a chorus.
Yeah.
To me, because you're not your initial note's so clean, and then it just kind of comes in at the back and fills it up.
Yeah, it reminds me kind of like a late '80s U2, like something like the Edge would have been doing.
Yeah.
And I love it. And so I do that, and then I've got my Polaro reverb that I don't use a lot because I kind of depend on my amp verb a lot now.
Yeah.
But if I'm wanting to do something like shimmer verb or something different, I'll go there. But I kind of go back and forth with reverb. Like, I like it. Like the Fender Pro reverb I have now has such good reverb that I'm not using the pedal. because I just love that sound. But then like if I find myself like playing with people and and I find myself like getting buried in the mix, I kind of go a little bit drier, where I
Yeah.
don't even do as much reverb at all. Like if I was playing like in a rock situation where like I just needed to be out in front, and like I would probably not play with reverb at all.
Hmm.
Hmm. Interesting.
I would be just, letting it sit out in front of the band. So that's all I use. And I've had other pedals like I've had the Boss TR2, which I think is a great bassline tremolo pedal. Our Pro Reverb kind of takes care of that right now. But I'm a sucker for tremolo. I'm not huge down the chorus rabbit hole, but I think if I committed to it, I probably would enjoy it, So I don't know. So I don't add a lot to my pedal board. It takes something happening, like you were saying, Josh, like somebody asking, "Hey, can you do this?" And then I start
Yeah.
thinking, "Okay, what do I need to accomplish that?" And then I'll try to add it to my board.
Yeah, that's kind of what sparked me on my way, and I think I'll go next on this. Is like my friend, the worship leader at our church, Adam. He's been really liking to have heavier drives coming from me, and I'm not really a heavy drive guy, and my distortion was the monoprice distortion. It really wasn't working for that, and my Mojo, until I figured out how to set it up today, wasn't giving me enough hair but definition at the same time, because it's a very smooth, kind of creamy sounding overdrive. The Mojo is, and so yeah, the way that I have my board set up right now is I actually took off the monoprice distortion, which has been on there since I bought it. I have my compressor, which I use as an underdrive right now, to bring everything down and use it for rhythm. It's like my rhythm setting. And then I have my sub and up after the compressor, which I have set right now to the polyphonic. But I just found this really cool tone prip from Music is Win. That's like, it sounds like it's actually a polyphonic but with a vintage sound, but trying to sound like a analog like Octavia. But then it's got a vibrato on it too, like a really subtle vibrato, and it's really interesting. It's kind of a Weedley organ sound, which I think is fun to mess around with. And then I have my Mojo set up as a mid boost right now, with a little bit more hair than I usually have. And I have my tremolo, which I'm using all the time now that I bought it. My my Rowan Trellicopter, I'm using it, like, I have to tell myself every song doesn't need tremolo. Tremolo.
Yes, it does.
And it's like, because it's like there's something about that, and even if you have it set at like a more distinct throb kind of thing, it's like you can use that tremolo excuse me, to do all kinds of cool stuff with it. Just playing you can just sit there and play a bar chord, and it's like, holy cow, that sounds good.
It does take up a lot of on the sonic spectrum. Like it makes your sound move, if that makes sense. Like it feels like super organic to have that pulse on there. And I think that's why a lot of people, like Joey Landreth in particular, uses tremolo a lot on his slide playing. He uses a harmonic tremolo, and he just sounds incredible. It just gives it, especially if you're playing like a slower song, that can add so much to it.
For sure.
Now, do you use it, Josh, on that like slower pulse, or do you use like a quick pulse?
It's
like,
to me, I just went to the spot where it's kind of in between. I'm trying to think of what a good way of describing what it would be like. It's kind of just it's close to what my amp tremolo was as I could get, which, if I remember correctly, was like if I think about it in beats per minute, it's probably about 100 or 120 beats per minute. You know, so it's not ridiculously fast. Not it's about like
Yeah.
about right there. Maybe a little bit slower than that. And it's got I set the bias so that it goes down about like an amp tremolo. I can't say that right. The throb, just like a kind of, it doesn't go all the way off.
Mhm.
And
Gotcha.
yeah, it's just something that, like, for single note lines, for chords, for like doing those little kind of gospel inversions, it just sounds really good for that. And then I have my Morley mini volume, which isn't great, but I've moved those LEDs around enough so that I kind of know how to use it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's not like an Ernie Ball or anything like that where you can get those big sweeps and those big swells. But really, if you think about what actually comes out, unless you've got gigantic stuff going on, and you're really high up in the mix, 80% of that swell is going to disappear anyway, you know? And so I don't really need that much motion. And then I have the Hoff Mini, which I have set to crazy reverb, big giant room with a view or something like that. And then my Alter Ego, which has a carbon copy bright tone print on it. This is what I'm using. So all these crazy delays, and I'm using the carbon copy bright, no mod off, tone print. So just like Clifton, I'm using one basic thing. When I bought this, because the Echo Rec and the Space Echo sounds are so flipping cool, but
Yeah.
I can't use it because it's my only delay. So I have to keep something for a good clean slapback that gets a little bit syrupy when you play over top of it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my board and how I use it. It'll change really dramatically when I get my new pedals, but yeah, it's kind of like I realize. And the funny thing is, I started off with one or two pedals, and kind of added as I realized. Oh wait, I need this. I need this sound because if my wife's not playing keys this week. Oh wait, I need this sound if we play this type of song. Where
Mhm.
rather than just buying a pedal because I think it's cool, I bought it because it's like bare minimum. I need these sounds to make this work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I just thought about another pedal that I regret getting rid of. Um, I think I mentioned this to you guys this week. It was a DoD FX91. It was a blue pedal. I picked it up for ridiculously cheap at the pawn shop, and it had such a good sounding delay. The reason I thought I needed to get rid of it is because it didn't have a tap tempo,
Yeah.
and so you kind of had to dial in the speed of it, with the knob, and it had a weird like little looper thing where you had to kind of hit it and play with the knobs, but you could get like a one, maybe it was up to 2 second like loop you could create, and it wasn't like to keep licks going, but it was to make weird chirpy sounds that you could like trail out, and like
Yeah.
keep doing weird things. And it was such a unique pedal. And I sold it when I was trying to get the Taylor. Like I was in the sell everything mode, and I think I definitely could have kept that,
Yeah.
for what I let it go for. But you know, if I found another one, which it's not a very common pedal, but if I found another one, I'd probably just snatch it up and get it.
Huh.
Just because it would be a good second delay to have on my pedal board.
Yeah.
It was solid.
I kind of I got another one. I've got another one too. That yellow fall I bought. And I mean, the only reason why I bought it is because I had I signed up for that Donner deal and it was already on sale, and I got the thing for $15 to my door. And my dad already had that one, and I really liked it. Only he was using it for like long delays, but I've been putting that on all the time. Like it's on constantly on that rockabilly slapback setting. I just absolutely love that sound. It can get away from you though. Like if you're trying to play like a clean line and you got that rockabilly thing on, like it's kind of like tremolo in that way where I think it fills a lot of space. if you put that on, you don't really need to play as clean as you normally would. It feels like you're just trying to play a lot of, you're trying to make noise. Like you're trying to fill it feels to me like, rockabilly bands, a lot of the times you got like a stand-up bass, a guitar player, singer, and a drums. It's like really stripped down. They put that rockabilly, like that slapback on there, and it's almost like fuzz. It just fills a lot of room. A lot of air, and it makes your sound move. And I've been putting that on more and more, but I do find that it makes me a sloppy player if I have it on. It makes me sloppier.
Yeah.
I think if I was playing live and I was like first starting out, I just keep it on all the time so no one would notice my mistakes.
That's exactly what I did when I started playing electric at church. Is I would just crank that delay up and crank that reverb up, and it's like, well, it'll sound okay.
What did he just screw up? Yeah, but it happened 6 times and it sounds awesome.
Yeah,
this is super washy. Yeah.
Just a wall of sound. You just have all these boards. Josh, I always pictured you as a really simple guy, like on your pedals, and I think you have a bigger board than both Clifton and I combined right now.
Yeah, and it's because I need to make when I'm playing electric, I think of it as making up for missing parts of it, and I've always thought about these songs that I play at church as arrangements, and I want to be able to do everything that I hear in my head. And after 10 years of playing bass, and then a few years of playing acoustic at church, it's like, okay, I am going to do what I hear in my head for these songs. And so I need these pedals to have that happen. Where, and it is a simple. I am a simple guy, and a lot of times I'll have it off, but I like to be able to do that octave pedal if I need it, or I like to be able to do the way out there, other things, the delays and the reverbs and stuff, just so that I can finally get these arrangements that are in my head out out into the ether while I'm playing music.
Yeah. Josh is a soundscapist.
You know what? That's actually kind of accurate, because I don't really like playing flashy. But it's like I was talking to you guys earlier. I'm learning those. I went and tried to start learning those pedal steel licks, because I've always heard pedal steel licks on this one song every time we play it. I've heard it in my head, but I can't play. I've never been able to play them. And so I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to learn this way of bending, this pedal steel way of bending, so that I can play it on this one song.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I wanted
what about
to.
You, Nick?
Go ahead.
We didn't talk about Nick's board.
I know.
We talked about the pedals, but what are they?
What were we supposed to talk about? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, okay. So I already talked about a couple of them. The Screaming Bird's on there again. I've pulled it off several times. I tried the Dane Electro, the Timmy clone, the Overdrive, and I think it's the Cool Cat. And that one, it's okay. It's better with a tube amp. I don't really need it on my Katana, so that came off, and the Bird went back on, and I have that. So right now I've got the Bird. Okay, the first in line is my Moore knockoff tuner. I've got that, and then I go into, like I said, my board's really, really simple. After that, I go into the 50/50. Which is really the only overdrive that has stayed on my board since I bought it. That one, I guess I kind of fell into that one. That kind of plays with the topic, because I agonized about buying it at the ridiculous price it was offered. It was so cheap, and then I just felt like I had to have it. And it's awesome. I've even got it set right now where I always keep the black side on, and then I've got the white side. I've got that one actually turned up quite a bit, so when I put them together, I almost get a fuzz out of it. Huh. That's kind of what I'm doing with that. And then I've got the Screaming Bird after that, just to boost overall levels. And like I said, that one's on most of the time though. I with some guitars, it's definitely on. I've noticed that. Like I never take it off for some guitars. Other guitars don't like it as much. So I've got that one, and then after that, I go into my modulation pedal. Right now I'm just using like a Rogue CS9 Chorus while my other one gets fixed. But I've had that Rogue Chorus pedal since I was a kid. I mean, that was one of the first pedals we bought in the house, and it was a stupid deal of the day, musician's friend pedal, and it was like $10.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought it, and it really does the Leslie thing pretty well. And it's a pretty lush chorus pedal. It's got the plastic case, but it's pretty durable. I'm actually pretty bummed out because that used to be an Arion stereo chorus. My Uncle Mike had one stomp box, and it was an Arion stereo chorus. And when I first started playing, I borrowed it from him. And that pedal's known for having really good Leslie effects. And I could run, what I liked about it when I was a kid is I could run it through 2 amps. And I had my Sobtech, and I had a crappy 212 crate. Mm-hmm. So I would run them both together, and I thought with the chorus on, and I thought that was rad. So that was the first time I ever really had an experience with running more than 1 amp, and I really liked it. So I had it for that purpose. And then one day I gave it back to him, and I wish I had it. I should get another one someday, or get that one back from him because he probably doesn't play it anymore. But the Rogue's a good pedal. It's actually surprisingly really good. And then after that, I go into the Donner Yellowfall, and that's really it.
Wow.
I only run those pedals. I mean, but for what I do, I mean, how much do I really need? I think if I was going to get a pedal right now, obviously the Flanger's going to go back on my board when it's done, the Ibanez for the Rogue.
Yeah.
But I think if I was going to get another pedal right now, I'd get the Electro Harmonix Cockfight.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, just because. And my buddy, okay, so my neighbor just bought the actual wah version. And he's kind of down on it. He said it's just got too many options. When you look at that thing, it's got like 5 switches on both sides.
Yeah.
Like there's a million things you can do with it. But really, we both kind of talked about it, and we're like, yeah, really all I want it for is that cream, like kind of weird fuzz wah tone. Like that's it. And that's really all I want it for. I want to do that. And if I wasn't going to do that, it would be between that and a Pog, I think.
Yeah, I think I could definitely see you with a Pog.
Pogs look sweet. Like every time and I got turned on to the Pog by the guy from Rival Sons. Like he uses a Pog, and his pedal board's huge. He's got like 3 boards. And that Pog is like the cheapest pedal he's got, and he like lives on it. And yeah. I just love that octave sound. So I think between the Cockfight and the Pog, but I honestly have never played either one of them, so I need to sit down and actually play them. Yeah. And someday I'll probably do that. And honestly, I've got a really good fuzz pedal too. It's a Don Geomac. It's the guy that makes those makes the pedals and the utility outlets covers. Mm-hmm. And they're like $40, but he has a lot of circuits he makes, and he's got one that's a clone of a Baz Fuzz, which it's a 1 knobber, and that's just a level, and then it's got it works off your guitar's volume knob. It starves it. So if you turn your guitar volume down, it starves the pedal, and cool. It gives you that real Velcro-y, rippy, like your signal's dying. Yeah. And the only thing that's wrong with it, and maybe somebody can help me in the group, because it's clearly I don't know what I'm doing with it. I have to run that alone. Like I cannot run it. It does not play well with any other pedal. And the guy told me I should put it first in my chain, so I can use that starve ability. And I have ran it so that the Screaming Bird boosts it. I'd have the bird before the boost, and that gives it a constant signal, and then it just turns it into a distortion pedal.
Really? Huh.
And it sounds pretty cool. And I've ran it that way before, but honestly, it just, no matter where I put it, I have to have it first in the chain, and it just does not play. Like, I can't have any other pedal. Like, you guys heard me talk about how I like to keep pedals on. I can't keep everything on my board that I want on when I've got that fuzz on. Like, I'd have to turn everything off and run the fuzz on its own, and I like that sound, just that sound. And I thought maybe I should just run like a splitter, because I've got like a splitter box. Maybe I should run like that in a loop on its own. But then I got like, I'm doing all this crap for one fuzz pedal.
Yeah.
Where I could get, I mean, I had a half horse, and that played fine with other pedals. And I mean, I could just get another fuzz that played better with pedals, or I could just use that particular fuzz in front of an amp that I like, and just for that sound, and then run them to like an AB, where I could just have that fuzz on. And I like to research how people use fuzz a little bit more. I mean, because obviously, I mean, Gary Clark Jr. didn't have that problem when I watched him, and they were running fuzz like crazy with other pedals.
Yeah.
And maybe I just don't know how to gain stage very well. I don't know. But
that's
I
definitely
do have that. You know?
Like if I was gonna get another pedal right now, I think that's where I wanna like jump off into is the fuzz territory. I've never owned a fuzz pedal.
Don't get the Joyo Octave fuzz.
I've heard that's terrible.
Well, I told my dad it was, and he bought it anyway. And he bought it, and I'm gonna go play it this weekend, and I think I should do a video on it. Like I'll just maybe just put a quick video up, but it's a two pedal like a two switch pedal. And I said, so does that mean you can turn the octave on and off and the fuzz on and off? And he's like, no, it doesn't work that way. I'm like, well, how does it work? And he's like, it's complicated. And I'm like, well, how is it complicated? So I gotta go home. But I'm like, if that's a huge miss if that's not what it does. I guess you can mod them so that they sound good. And maybe at some point my dad's just gonna want to get rid of this thing. This is his first fuzz pedal, so he told me that the fuzz is great, but the octave sucks. Like he says the octave isn't good. He thought it'd be good for lower strings, like the bass strings, but he said it only sounds good up the fretboard. So it's got more of a harmonizer effect to it. Like it's like, what is that, an upper octave? So I'm going to see what it's like, but I've heard that pedal is not good, but from so many people. And then that In the Blues guy did a review of it and said it was good, my dad said. So that's kind of like, this might lead us into the demo conversation.
Yeah. That's a good,
because I think that guy Shane makes everything sound good. So I haven't, he even made the Mustang GT sound pretty good, even though he admitted it sucked. So I don't know. I mean, I always get like, I kind of have to take all those guys with a grain of salt because they're just good players anyway, and they have good brain processes. And sometimes I just want to see a dude playing in his room with an amp and a phone mic.
Yeah.
Like that's more realistic.
Now here's the thing, guys. If we look at YouTube reviews, what is it that you look for? I mean, Nick, you kind of mentioned a little bit of it. What is it that you look for in a YouTube review that makes it a good review in your mind to give you an idea of whether you want something or not?
I wish I could. I really wish I could like pick somebody out that I think does a really good job. There's a couple people that come to mind. Jay Leonard J is probably my first, just because he does a really good job explaining what the pedal does, and he's a monster player, and he makes everything sound great. And I really love his enthusiasm about everything. Like he is so happy to play guitar all the time, and I love watching him do it. But I think I look for, obviously I want the demo to make me want to buy the pedal.
Yeah.
And I want somebody to show me how fun the pedal is. And I would prefer a review like Jay's, where he's actually walking you through the pedal rather than just like in like the Pro Guitar Guy. I love that guy, but like he just kind of runs like a track and just plays. And that's cool, like that's great, but it doesn't really show me as much. I just end up thinking that guy's a great player. It doesn't really make me want to buy the pedal. Maybe if we're talking normal demos, I always kind of default to reverb.
Really?
Like, yeah, just because the only thing I will say about reverb, something with the way that they record their pedals always sound a little harsh to my ears.
Yeah, that's what I always notice.
I don't get it, but I like the way they just kind of stand the pedal up and they take you through it, and then they give you a description, and then it's got the guy playing a little bit in the beginning and playing a little bit at the end, and they kind of just do a good job taking you through the product. I think Ryan from 60 Cycle does a fantastic job.
Oh man, yeah, yep.
I mean, he makes them fun. He goes through, and he's not afraid to get weird with a pedal to show you what it can do, where I think a lot of players don't do that. They don't get weird with a pedal. They'll like just show you practical uses for the pedal, but they won't get crazy with it, where Ryan's not afraid to do that. And the amount of production Ryan puts into his reviews is just great. Like he makes it fun. He has a theme. So I guess to wrap this up for me, I look to be entertained, number one. If I'm going to watch a demo video, I want to be entertained. Number two, I want to know what the pedal does. Like, take me through what it can do, the full range of it. Give me a application. Like, you know, in Ryan's case, I like when he defaults to like a surf sound.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what he does. He's a surf guitar player. So give me a practical application for it. If you think this pedal's great on the transparent overdrive setting and the boost, then use it as that. If you think it's the best for a face ripping over the top muff style fuzz, show me that.
Yeah.
And then basically tell me what you like about it and what you don't. That's the pros and cons in your opinion. That's the things I want to know. But I know it's weird that I'm putting make it fun first off of everything, but look how many freaking demos there are out there.
Yeah, that's true.
I
Yeah.
want to be entertained for 4 minutes. If you're going to make a 4-minute video, entertain me. I mean, don't just like show me how good of a player you are. You know, but anyway, I think between Jay Leonard, Jay, and Ryan, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I also like RJ Ronquillo too. I think he does a really good job.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, but he's a monster player, and oh my god, I can't believe I forgot this guy. Have you guys ever seen that guy? His name's Nick.
Nick in the States?
Is it Nick in the States, or is it? He's got glasses. He does a lot of videos, and his videos are a little more fireside realistic. Like he does a lot of tutorials and stuff on how to write songs and how
It's
to.
not this guy then. Yeah, it's not Nick in the States.
He does a tip of the day, kind of thing. Maybe I'll find it. You guys can talk about your demos, and maybe I can find this guy because I subscribe to him, and maybe I can figure that out. But yeah, I think he's on the other end of the spectrum where he's just a very normal guy that's just kind of running through the utility of a pedal. And I usually find something I find something educational about that. So really, I kind of bounce between those 4 or 5 people for all my reviews. Before I buy something, like I'll check them all out just because I want to see like the full spectrum, and then I'll go from there. But yeah, that's kind of my long-winded answer. This is more difficult than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's interesting because you did completely different. Most of the guys you've mentioned, I've not watched at all, except for that In the Blues guy. And to be honest, I have a hard time with him because he always sounds so much like him.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's a bad player. It's just that he's got his very specific thing.
He's a blues muso, dude.
Yeah, yeah. And so for me, I'll do Andy from Pro Guitar Shop because I'm not saying I'm near as good as him, but because he kind of has that sound that I like, where he's just a solid player, and he doesn't really put a lot of like every note you can tell it's him playing it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, yeah, okay, I can tell when Andy plays something that I can get that sound. Maybe I won't sound as good as him, but I know that that's what the pedal sounds like. You know,
and he bores me. I don't know why. He's good. I don't know. He's like almost flawless good. Like when he plays.
And that's why for me, when I'm watching him, I'm not watching him for entertainment. If I'm going to watch one for entertainment, and you're not going to, I watch either, if I'm going to watch a pedal review for entertainment, I'm going to watch either Henning Pauly, who I know a lot of people who don't like, the I Spy guy.
I don't even know who that is.
HP42 on he's a German dude.
Oh, yeah.
He's the bald guy.
Yep.
He always wears the fancy sweaters.
And he always has the like microphone, like the aviator microphone on, like the one that wraps around his face.
No.
Like the hanging mic? No.
I think I know.
I know
this guy has like 8 like his studio has got a ton of amps on one side.
Oh.
Lots of light and dogs, and he's got he's really professional, but to me he's a particular kind of funny that I'll watch a half an hour video with him and enjoy it. Or, Ryan, if he has a video of something, it doesn't matter if I'm interested or not, I'll watch Ryan's videos. The 60 cycle hum videos. Because he's just to me he's a compelling person to watch on YouTube.
Well, this is a funny story, and I think Ryan would appreciate this too if he does listen to this. But my dad just bought, or he's looking at one of the TC pedals because he stumbled on one of Ryan's reviews,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't even know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and he goes, "Yeah, that Ryan Burt guy from 60 Cycle." I'm like, 60 Cycle Hum? And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You watched his pedals?" And he's like, "Yeah, that guy." I'm like, he's kind of goofy. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's goofy." I'm like, I'm like, "Dad, that's the community that I'm in, and that's the podcast I listen to." And he's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Yeah, he does a lot of cool videos like that." But
Yeah.
that's probably the quirkier where my dad goes with it. I just thought that was funny that, Ryan did all those TC videos, and my dad's interested in TC pedals, and he just stumbled onto the podcast that I listen to religiously. So,
Now,
yeah.
I will say that if a video has a room sound to it, I pretty much just stop it. If I hear a room noise in a video, I just stop it. If I hear clipping in the microphone when it's mic'd, I stop it. I won't listen anymore because it's no good. If you're hearing the clipping distortion from the mic, or if you hear the room sound, it's like, I don't know what that pedal sounds like if I'm looking to buy a pedal. And so it's useless to me. It's like, I don't care how entertaining you are. If I hear a room sound, if I hear that, or if you have your amp set up so that your amp sounds like your amp, because I don't care what it sounds like through an AC30. That's the worst amp you could possibly put a pedal through, because everything's going to sound like an AC30.
That is hilarious that you have that stance, because, like, I don't know if you the pedal show and stuff. Most people swear that an AC30 is the best pedal platform for a demo.
Well, maybe, but you know what? It sounds like an AC30.
Well, yeah,
it's not.
So does a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe.
I would rather have a pedal going straight to the board than have it go through something with a lot of character.
Not me. I gotta have it. I don't like that, because then it just sounds overly compressed and too perfect.
But no,
I gotta hear that air.
But then you can imagine what it'll actually sound like when.
We can't, because you don't hear it through an amp.
Well, the thing is, I said I would rather have it that way than go through an AC30. Put it through a Fender Frontman. Put it through a Blues Junior. Put it through a PD Classic 30. Put it through even a Marshall on clean. But you put it through an AC30 with any kind of dirt on it, or an AC15 with any kind of dirt on it, and it colors the whole top end of that pedal.
That could be any amp. That's your personal bias. Clifton, weigh in on this.
I like to hear what it sounds like through several different amps.
That's ideal. That's ideal. You're right. Or I completely agree there. That's ideal. But a lot of these guys will just run it through an AC.
Yeah.
I
think I've heard a lot of guys talk about how they will, like, builders and stuff who are trying to demo their gear, they try to play through the amps that like a majority of people have, and a kind of a backline amp. For instance, like a Hot Rod Deluxe or something, because it's so generic that everybody knows what that sounds like, that they can.
Yes.
It's an easy point of reference. So I don't know. That's all. Moving on to let's go on to some of our picks this week.
For sure.
Okay.
What are you guys listening to or finding that you would want to recommend to our listeners?
I'm going to pull an oldie out this week, and I'm going to go with the White Stripes Elephant, which came out in 2003. Most of you probably have it, because that was when Seven Nation Army, that had Seven Nation Army, Hardest Button to Button, and most of his big hits were on that album. That was kind of the one that really broke, in my opinion. It's also got Ball and a Biscuit, and it's got In the Cold, Cold Night, Black Math, You've Got Her in Your Pocket. Like, all those songs are on that album, and it's good from front to back. Just and amazing guitar sounds. And I didn't really notice how much I'm influenced by this album. It's not even mine, it's my wife's. Like, she had it like in her collection when we first got together. I I was playing it the other day in the car, and my 7-year-old daughter Aubrey goes, "Dad, play that CD with just the two people in it and the girl that plays drums." And I was like, "The White Stripes?" And she's like, "Yeah." So I put that on, and Aubrey really likes the White Stripes. She'll listen to that whole CD, and she knows all the songs. And I put on, I don't know which one it was. I think it's either Black Math or There's No Home for You Here, one of those songs. And she goes, "I like these songs because this sounds like you, Daddy." And I was like, "No, it doesn't." And then I started listening to it, and I was like, "Man, I rip off Jack White all the time."
That's hilarious.
Those songs, I've absorbed those songs in my head, and I didn't realize this before, but Jack White's guitar tone is kind of like what I'm striving for. Like,
I can see that.
off that album, and I was like, "You're right, Aubrey." Like, I was listening to one of them was "Ball and a Biscuit," and I was like, "Yeah, I've played that kind of riff I don't know how many times." And you know how we always say we're going for a sound in our head? That album, Elephant, is my sound. Like, that's what I've wanted to do on an electric guitar. Like, I have, acoustic-wise, I have a totally different set of what I want to sound like than Jack White. He likes those kind of crappier acoustic. I think he actually plays a Gretsch or something like that. But it's a really boring acoustic sound. It's not, that great. But his electric stuff is just, he's got that high-end crunch, and I think that's part of the reason why I want a cockfight too, because I've been analyzing this, and he, Jack's famous for the Digitech whammy pedal, so, and doing the crazy stuff with that, and I'm like, wow, maybe that's why I want a cockfight, because I want to do some of those crazy sounds, to break up some of the blues stuff I do and folk stuff I do. But anyway, that's my pick. I love that album, man, and if you don't own it, or if you're a young buck that hasn't heard of it, you should go get it. Because now we're to the point where this is almost old.
You can't just assume. You can't assume everybody knows what it is anymore.
That's
no,
true.
you can't. Spencer might not know what the hell I'm talking about.
Spencer knows the White Stripes.
I know Spencer. Spencer has good taste in music, though.
Yeah.
So we've rubbed off on him, but no, he has good taste in music anyway.
What about you, Josh?
Anyway, what do you guys? Yeah, Josh.
What about me? Well, I'm going to recommend somebody that actually came from listening to the Rhett Miller that I mentioned. Was it last week or 2 weeks? I think it was last week.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
From the old 97s, and I'm going to say it's Pete Yorn, Yorn.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like I've never heard of him before, and I went back and refreshed myself because a couple of his songs came up in both radio mixes on Spotify from old 97s and Rhett Miller. And it's like he's really interesting. It's like some of his stuff, like the 2016 album Arranging Time, a lot of the intros and a lot of the way it sounds, it's kind of like a post-surf rock type of sound. And then before that, the further back you go, the more Americana he gets. And it looks like he even did, and I'm not familiar with it, but it looks like he even did an album in like, what is it here? Like 2009 with Scarlett Johansson. I think that called Breakup.
Huh.
And I just listened through his stuff, and I kind of struggled to find a pick this week, and he was one that while I was listening to the Rhett Miller stuff in the old 97s, he just stuck out because he kind of does that. His voice is kind of like a tamer version of what's the dude from Counting Crows. But then
I think I always pinned him as a Ryan Adams.
I can't get into Ryan Adams. I wish I could.
Well, when I first discovered Ryan Adams' album, the one that had Wildflowers and New York and Firecracker, that album, I found Pete Yorn at the same time, and
it's the
Pete
Gold
Yorn had a
album,
song.
wasn't it? Was it the Gold album?
What's that?
Was it the Gold album?
Yeah, that's it. And Pete Yorn had a song called "A Girl Like You," and that was a really slow acoustic, like, ballad. And I remember making my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, a mix CD for Valentine's Day, and that had that song on it, "A Girl Like You," and she loved it. So that's how I remember Pete Yorn. I don't know a single Pete Yorn song other than that. I've heard some, but I mean, that was the one that got me into Pete Yorn. But yeah, I I think it did kind of confuse me one time. It showed up on Pandora or something, and I thought it was somebody else, and it was Pete Yorn. And I was like, I just my only frame of reference for Pete Yorn was A Girl Like You.
Yeah, not
So
to
I
be
was like-
confused with the YouTube guy Pete Thorne. And see,
And
I
I
used to
have
think
done
they
that
were the same
before.
guy.
That guy, talk about it. He's another monster player.
Yeah,
But yeah, totally. Well, good pick, man.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm surprised because I hadn't heard him before because he's right up my alley, sound wise and songwriting wise. Not quite as deep as some of the other guys, but I really like his production and the way that he mixes styles together.
yeah.
Really interesting.
Totally.
Yeah.
What about you, Cliffy?
Well, I'm gonna make one more comment on that pick. He does this song called "Would You Like a Burrito?" That just every time I eat a burrito, I like start humming that line, that hook.
Man, Cliff, and you know what? I'm still mad because you got me addicted to that "What's Up with That" skit on Saturday Night Live. And I showed it to my wife last night, and she was cracking up. And now it's in her. She's been walking around the house going, "What's up with that? What's up with that?"
Oh, I love that
And,
sketch. Yeah.
And then I was gonna say that I looked up the one where Lindsey Buckingham's actually in the episode.
Yeah.
And then I was at Rainbow Music today, and I was thumbing through. Somebody brought their old guitar magazine collection in, and they were selling them for like $1 a magazine.
Yeah.
And Lindsey Buckingham was on 4 different guitar player covers.
And
I was
that's
like-
what bothered me about it. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
I was like, man,
Yeah. That's
And
hilarious.
he looked just like Bill Hader.
Yeah.
Like his hair was frizzed up, and he had the V-neck shirt with the chain
Yeah.
and the leather coat. And I was like, Lindsey Buckingham. You ain't mad at me, are you, Lindsay?
Yeah, I love that. I would love to have, like, if we had guests that like just kick on the drum machine doing tss, 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 tss,
Like
and start
like
off with
phone.
that. Yeah, it'd be really rude, but
And every single one of those skits gets worse every time. Like the guy said, the actual guest says less and less,
yeah.
which is hilarious. Like Paul Rudd hardly said anything.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great sketch. You guys have sent me down a bad rabbit hole. So I'm just gonna talk about my experience with picks this week. I went from looking up old Muddy Waters to then looking at Little Walter, then looking up Willie Dixon, and then I've gone to the point where like this morning I ran across this Dust to Digital Facebook page, and it had like R.L. Burnside and just and then I'm like hearing things in that, and I'm cross-referencing that with oh man, that sounds like I saw R.L. Burnside, he was doing Rolling and Tumbling, and then I had to go like listen to the Bob Dylan version off the Modern Times album that he did like in 2006 or whatever. This is the year I saw him play. And I'm just like down this rabbit hole of blues right now. And it's
Nice.
yeah. I'm trying to okay, well this is the dude that influenced this. I need to go listen to him. And I was listening to Junior Kimbrough this morning. And it blows my mind that like half of these dudes I've mentioned like are from my state, and yet like I never paid attention to their music.
Man, you need some learning.
I
You need
know.
to get yourself.
I know.
You're in Graceland, man.
I know. I just I need to get down to the roots a little more. And
Well, and on that note, to all of our listeners out there, follow Dust to Digital on Facebook.
yes.
There is some amazing recordings on there of old music that and it'll get you down that rabbit hole Clifton's talking about, because it's got like Elizabeth Cotten and like Muddy Waters and Lightning Hopkins and Fred McDowell, and like
Yeah.
they just have a lot of old timey stuff, like really early recordings of people, and they feature like one, I don't know how many times a week, but
Junior Wells is another. He's a Memphis cat.
yeah, Junior Wells.
Junior Wells
play
is
with Buddy
great.
Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because most people like they stop at BB King or they stop at SRV or they do whatever, but there's so much more.
Yeah.
But Dust to Digital has helped open a lot of doors for me too. Like I really dig that account. But
Yeah.
Sounds cool. I'll have to check it out.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know what I think it's time for?
It's time for the Mojo Minute. Okay.
Right.
Today we are going to talk about the mythical Tube Screamer.
Oh.
And I say mythical because some of these old Tube Screamers go for like $900 to $1,000. And so they must be mythical or magic. I don't know, but
They play the guitar for you.
yeah, I mean, you're paying for it, that's for sure. and it always kind of brings me back to that. You know how they have that? What was that show about World War II where Hitler spoofed on it all the time? Where he's sitting there and he's giving that speech in the bunker, but they always overlay
Downfall. Is it Downfall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or not Schindler's List. Yeah, it might be Downfall. Where
He's
they're
talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan's tone.
yeah, he's like giving that. They're getting defeated, and he's yelling at all his generals, and then he's looking over the map, and then they overlay like they're talking about Dumbles, and he goes. In one of the lines he says, do you think Texas Flood was recorded with his bare hands? No, he needed to use pedals. And then he's like, I'll pay vintage prices. I don't even care. But
it's about
go
heavy
check
strings.
Yeah, exactly. Like he goes, I can't practice for hours at a time. I need vintage Tube Screamers. But it's I look at we were just talking, like, since we're talking pedals this episode, it got me looking into some of the vintage pedals. And once in a while you go on Reverb and like I'll get it, I'll just look at the old MIJ Boss pedals and stuff like that. You'll see them and they're absolutely tore up and they'll be like $600 because they're the old MIJs. And if you get the vintage Tube Screamers with the infamous op amp JRC 4558C. And that's the mythical one, and that's the one that everybody wants, and the collector's items and stuff like that. And it got me thinking, like, do pedals have mojo? Do vintage pedals have mojo? And I have never really thought of them that way. The only pedal I've ever thought of where I really wanted a beat up pedal that was really desirable. And Leon from Pelican Noise Works reminded me of this when he did his Big Muff shootout last week. Was an old like Russian beat up Big Muff, like that came in the wooden crate and everything like that. And that from my childhood, that's a pedal I've always wanted, was one of those big, huge original Big Muff pedals. And not really knowing why, aesthetically, I just like the way they look. I've never really been a fan of muff style pedals. I don't ever keep them very long, but I just dig the way they look. They tell a story. Like an old beat up muff pedal tells a story. For me, it screams Smashing Pumpkins, as it does for most people. And that reminds me of the first time I heard Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness and Bullet with Butterfly Wings, that whole kind of deal. So it's got some special meaning to me, but I would never pay these kinds of prices. Like, I just don't understand it. Yeah. I just don't get it. I guess if you're a collector, you understand it. But I just remember watching the Wampler Chasing Tone episode with Blake where they talked about how op amps there is no mythical op amp. Like they're not noticeably different. Some people swear by them, but it's a myth.
Yeah. And
this is coming from Ryan Wampler.
You know? If he can't hear it, he can't hear it, I'm not going to hear it.
Yeah, and he did a YouTube shootout where he's posted this episode several times on Chasing Tone. And he has a YouTube video about it where he plugs into the breadboard, he plugs in several different op amps. And I can't tell the difference. I don't know if somebody must have golden ears and can hear like Eric Johnson ears or something like that. But I can't imagine paying $800 for a vintage tube screamer unless it was owned by a famous musician. And even then, I wouldn't buy it, but some people might. There would be more incentive there. I just don't get it. I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I have to be careful because I have to practice what I preach, right? And I just went off on this tirade about the DoD wanting that delay back, even though I'm sure I could find that in something new and whatever.
Yeah, but you liked the tone of that though.
I did like the tone.
And that was more. It was more about that than it was that you just want to buy this old whatever.
Yeah, you paid $30 for it. You wouldn't pay $300.
No, and I would not pay $300 for that again. Like it would have to be $50 to $60 for me to pick it up again. So I got to be careful. But in saying that, I think that it's one or two things when it comes to that kind of people paying these outrageous prices. Either one, it's the guy who had it back in the day and he wants it again and he's willing to pay at all price whatever it takes to get that pedal again. Okay? Because I remember the good old days. This is what I like playing. Then I think it's sometimes it's the younger player who gets sucked into this, who is told that how awesome something is, and they never and they play the reissue, but they have in their mind that I'm not going to get as good of results unless I go down this rabbit trail of finding the old original one with all the same resistors and op amps and whatever capacitors, and they buy into this thing that I've got to have the real thing.
Yeah.
Well, like the old Boss Chorus Ensemble CE1, those are like, I know they're not the easiest things to find, but they're $750.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't tell me that the new Boss pedals, with all their technology and how they're killing it on everything, that you can't get the same sounds out of those. It's just, I don't know. I mean, now I understand, like, all right, so this is the only time I understand this. And I'm sure I'll be corrected in Facebook if that's not the case, if nobody agrees with me. But, okay, so when you're talking about fuzzes and germanium transistors and stuff like that, you know, like some people will tell you that they played really good fuzz faces, they've played really bad fuzz faces. Yeah. And there are boutique builders that will sift through bags of germanium transistors to find the right transistors that are good, right? Mm-hmm. So I get that, because germanium transistors vary in quality. So it makes sense to me, like some fuzzes would be more expensive because they have premium transistors in them. You know, they got the legit whatever. When you get down the MK2 route and all that, you know, with the treble boosters and stuff like that. But I just, like, when you're dealing with like normal components, why can't you just use quality components and build the same circuit? And how is that not going to sound just as good as the old ones do?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't believe, I can believe, okay, so collectability, I guess we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about collectability versus just having a good sound.
Yeah.
Right? You can mimic the sound, but you can't mimic the collectability. Right. So maybe that's what we're talking about. There's people that just have this itch that say, no, I want the legit one. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the one I want, because that's super hipster and super cool, and I'm going that route. We're not talking about like this, like the Boss SG1 slow gear, which hasn't been reproduced by Boss. That's $479, and everybody wants them to redo it because it's like a mythic like pedal. Everybody wants that pedal.
Yeah.
There's that affects in emulators, and it's been cloned and whatever, but it's not like Boss hasn't redone it right yet, right? So I get that, but if you're going to compare a new TS9 to an old TS9 with the same components in it, even if the op amp chip is a little different, I just don't believe that one's going to sound better. I'm not there. My ears will not detect that difference. I guarantee it. They're just not good enough, I guess. Or maybe it's a qualitative thing, like where if you strive for the perfect tone and everything down to your power supply is like totally, and then maybe you got this, then at the end you've got this heavenly tone because you're doing all the right things and you're looking for pieces of the tone puzzle at that point. Maybe it's that way. Maybe that's the difference, where if I buy a Tube Screamer, you know, and I pay $800 for it, but I run it through my Boss Katana, you know, into my Samick guitar, I'm kind of doing it wrong. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
This is just, I guess it's just tone chasing. I don't know. I just cannot fathom paying $369 for a 1980 Japanese-made Boss BF2 flanger, the purple one, when I can buy that pedal for $60 used for a newer one. Like,
yeah, who would have thought like 10 years ago this would be all the rage, you know?
It's just crazy, and maybe it isn't. Maybe these don't sell that much. I don't know. Maybe they just sit there because they have them and only collectors buy them.
You know, I think it's for looks. I think that a lot of times you'll look at your board and there's things that'll give you confidence, and I think it's about looks and confidence. It's kind of like when we talked to Kevin Equitz and he talked about a guitar having a certain feel and look and making you play better because you feel like that's you, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I feel like. It's like
maybe
you see that beat up old Tube Screamer that's been on, you know, 10 tours or something with the band, and you think, you know, somebody loved that. It's kind of like with old guitars, like your Mojo guitars. Somebody loved that guitar and played the heck out of it, right? And it makes you, on a guitar, there's actually a difference, you know, especially in acoustic over time. But like, it's kind of the same thing. Is if that pedal stayed on somebody's board long enough to get messed up like that, maybe people feel like, well, it must have something special about it.
Yeah.
It'll make me special when I have it.
Well, I definitely should feel that way about my Jekyll and Hyde then, right?
You know what? I think you should, Clifton, because that's yours, and it came by all that stuff honestly.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, I mean, that should be the thing that we take away from this app, right? Is that, you know, if that pedal stayed on your board that long, it doesn't matter how much somebody offers it to you. It's actually probably worth more to you than that vintage pedal.
Yeah.
That, you know, that because it's got your mojo all over it. It's got your stank on it.
It's got, well, and you know, there might be something to that. If I ran into the same Midget Mig and somehow realized that was my Sovtech,
yeah,
you know, how much would I pay for that? You know, maybe I would pay $200 more because I know that was the one from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, that's just mental psychology stuff, right? On the other.
Yeah, let me give you a riddle. Let me riddle you this. What if you got another MiG and the one that you had originally was the one in your mind that sounded good and this one was a little bit different? Would you go on a chase to try to get one at like a vintage period correct one, you know, just like the one you had?
I'll throw this at you. I haven't played through that other amp in how many years? So whatever's in my, I mean, it would totally be a mental thing, right? Because I cannot possibly remember how that amp sounded. I don't have a recording.
Yeah.
I don't.
You remember how it made you feel?
Yeah, I would remember. I would remember that. Yeah. And I guess music is an emotional and kind of a mental game. I mean, if you feel like if you pick up, like, look at people in lore mandolins, like original lores.
Yeah.
They'll cash out their savings account to buy Chris Thiele, one of the best mandolin player, probably the best mandolin player, arguably in the world. You know, cashed out. He's got all these custom mandolins that probably play and sound better than the original lore that he bought, but he doesn't think so. And that lore he cashed his savings account out on, that in his mind made him a better player. Creatively, it opens something in him back up.
Yeah.
Like that he didn't have, he claimed he wasn't there before. I guess even if that's not true, if you believe that, maybe it's worth it.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. I feel like we need to talk to a psychologist.
Isn't that just what Mojo is, though? Isn't that all Mojo is?
Mojo is psychology.
Warm, fuzzy feelings and
yeah.
In magic.
Yeah.
It's magic.
And yeah, it's Mr. Rogers and yeah.
Well, then you explain to me why you've got this arch top that you have no emotional connection to, that you're now putting a pickup in, and we're fiddling around with at the start of this episode before we started recording, and
sounding amazing on, by the way.
How it's making you write and stuff like this. I would argue that is just Mojo incarnate.
Yeah, you know what? It feels good. It's not the ideal player. And it makes me, you know what it really does is it makes me like my other guitars a lot better.
Okay.
Because, but I mean, it's you know, it's fun, and we'll see what happens. I'll probably play it next week for at least one of the sets we do, and I'll try it out for that. And it's definitely a fun little instrument, but and you know, I can't say whether it doesn't feel really good to play it or not. It actually does to feel good to have something that's so totally different than anything else I play and still sound pretty decent on it, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, while we were talking, I was sitting here polishing my old brass slide up, trying to get it so that it doesn't scratch, and I'll probably play some slide on it later. Who knows? It's a fun instrument for sure.
See, it's making you do things like, see, I'm rubbing off on you. That's what's happening.
Ew.
Well, really,
Yeah,
if it only just
yeah.
pushes you in a direction that you have, or puts you in a place in your playing that you haven't been before,
For
then
sure.
I think it's a good thing.
Yes, yeah, I see that.
Yep,
For
that's
sure.
well, and I guess if it makes you happy, it's legit.
That you know what
No?
that's what we need to come down to, because we can sit here on the internet and criticize some stupid decision that we think other people are making, but you know what? If it makes them happy, and they're spending their money and they feel good about it, hey, you know that what who's to say that $700 piece of happiness isn't worth $700? You know,
If it makes you happy, it can't
Yeah.
be that bad.
for
I
sure.
know, I'm thinking of the Cheryl
Cheryl
Crow.
Makes you That's a great song.
Yeah.
That is a great song. I
Yeah.
think. But anyway. Well, hey, I think that's an episode, huh?
That's been fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be at NAMM next week, and hopefully I'll be trying to throw out some content as I'm there. Maybe try to watch out for the live streams. I'll be compulsively doing those, and I'll try to find what's cool. One of the things I saw that broke today was Milkman Amps has got a something called the Amp that they've come out with, and it's a pedal board amp. It's got a preamp that's tube driven with I want to say a 50 watt. It could be 70 watt. Probably Class D power amp on it. So I'm definitely going to try to track that down and try that out. And
That'll be fun to watch.
yeah.
Rad.
And so, again, if there's something that you, any of you guys, have seen that's been a buzz and you want me to go check it out, I will try to go do it. Just hit me up. And and any of our listeners that are going to be there in Anaheim, hit me up. I would love to meet you and hang out. So yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, guys. There's one more thing I want to add. That YouTube guy, I could not figure out who it was. The demoer is Just Nick Music.
Okay.
Just Nick.
Just
Okay.
Nick. Yep, and he's pretty good. You should check him out. He's got a lot of other things too, not just demos. He's good for content. But on that note, that's it. That was just driving me crazy.
All right. Well,